Hi, this is Sylvia McCrory with Christian Parenting Today, and today I'm going to talk about grief and how to help your child deal with grief. Um, Grief is something that we're all going to encounter in our life in one form or another. Uh, probably, and most people think about death, but we're probably all going to experience the death of a loved one, and that's one form of grief. Um, Children need to understand that it's normal, that the grieving process is a normal process. Some people have a lot more grief and a lot more losses than other people, but we need to help our children confront it. We need to help our children be ready to deal with it, and we need to encourage our children not to keep it bottled up. Now, grief comes in many forms, and I was talking about death, but it could also come in things like a terminal illness. And there's a long process there with that type of grief. Or it could come from like an injury. If someone maybe is in a car accident or injured some other way and loses a limb or is disfigured, that is a huge loss. For young people today, they suffer a big loss when there's a breakup with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. That is big for kids today. It always has been, but I think it's even more so today. Also, if there's a divorce in the family, that is a big loss for children. No matter what other people say, children will take that loss and they will deal with it for years and years to come. So you need to be diligent and on top of that one as well. Um, and then there is a, a, another type of loss, and that would be if children have to move for some reason, whether it's a financial reason or if it's a job or if it's a divorce. For whatever reason, if they have to move and they have to be away from their friends, then that is another type of loss. So we need to help our children deal with all this, and we need to let them know that it's natural, that grieving is, it's good to grieve because that's the way that we're going to heal and the way we're going to get through that. So one of the things that we need to encourage them is to always turn to God and to turn to the Bible as their security and their point of reference when they're dealing with this. We need to even be there with them if they are grieving. We need to help them along the way as they are dealing with this process. So I wanted to share a few Bible verses with you. These are some, a lot of you know most of these, but I just wanted to share just a few, just a handful, and there are others in the Bible. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 50 through 54, it says, I declare to you, brothers, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable. Listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For the perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable, and the mortal with immorality. When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with the immorality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. And then 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And I think that probably should be a memory verse and maybe even something that should be, um, in our homes, so it can also remind us because we go through some tough times. Hebrews 13:5. Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Isn't that a wonderful, wonderful promise? We know God has overtaken the world, that he has conquered the world. Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And then the last one is Psalm 27, verses 13 and 14. I am still confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. Sometimes we don't know why things happen. I'm reminded of several families that I've known throughout the years that seems like they have had more than their share of tragedies and bad things happening to them. We don't know. We don't understand why these things happen, but we need to know that God knows, and God is the one that will be there to comfort us. He's told us this world is not going to be easy. For Christians, it's not. So the more we can help our children, the better it is for them as they go through life. And the sooner, even with the death of a pet, let children grieve, encourage them to talk about it. So there are a few other things I would like to share with you about that, and I have some things that I want to share. These are some warning signs in dealing with grief, and these come from the book called Grief and Grieving: Finding the Meaning of Grief Through the 5 Stages of Loss by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler. So things that we need to be aware of. I get real concerned about young people that don't understand or don't have the tools that they need to deal with losses and disappointments and griefs. And I get really concerned when there are suicides of young people, and there are so many young people that have anxiety and depression. So some of the warning signs that we need to look for. We need to look for isolation. If they have become isolated and withdrawn, if they no longer want to be around their friends, and if they just are alone, that is a big warning sign, and we need to help them. If we cannot pull them out ourselves or their friends, then a counselor, someone, a professional person to talk to them would be a great place to start. Another warning sign is if someone is trying to self-medicate, and that can come from many forms. The most common forms of self-medication is going to be alcohol and drugs, but it could come from other forms. It could come, pornography is one that some people use. It could come with people getting, overworking. So we need to be watching that they're not self-medicating to avoid just dealing with the problem. Um, and then another warning sign is if there's guilt. If someone is feeling guilt because maybe they have lost a friend or a sibling, but they're healthy and they're fine, they may feel guilty because it wasn't them. So we need to be aware, and we need to be in tune if it is something going on there, because they are probably blaming themselves. And we need to make sure that they understand that things do happen, and that they don't blame themselves. If they start questioning God, that would probably be a great time for them to have a conversation with a pastor, with someone that is at the church. Maybe you can deal with that, but if not, then we need to take it to someone else that can help them deal with that. If they have increased fear or worry, if there has been maybe a diagnosis of someone in the family that's terminal or something, and then another child begins to worry about everyone else, if something's going to happen to everyone else, we need to be aware of that as well. We need to also be aware if there's fatigue or nausea, and then weight loss or weight gain. So, how can we help our children through this and our young people through this? Well, of course, the first thing, and I've already mentioned this, is encourage them to turn to God. And so the thing with this is we need to teach them before they need God that you turn to God every day for everything, for those simple day in and day out things. If we start teaching our children at a young age that God can handle anything that comes along, then the harder the things are that come along, the more they realize that God is there for them. So if we can show them that so that they already have that in their toolbox, if that's already something they can use, then that's great. We also need to let children know that it takes time. If it is a death, it's going to take a while. If it's a divorce, it's going to take a while. It's not something they're going to get over in a few months. It could be 2 or 3 years before they get over some of this. Some things they're going to take with them throughout their lives at some point, at some stage or another. But we need to let them know it's okay. Don't expect to be great right away. And also, we need to help them to avoid bottling up their emotions, that they can talk about their emotions, they can have someone to help them through this, even if it is a counselor, if it's you, if it's a grandparent, someone else in the family, or a friend. The more they talk about it, the more they can deal with it in the way that they see fit. You know, one thing that and I have been very fortunate, God has blessed me, I have not lost a child, but one interview I heard was a mother who had lost a child, and she was talking about how raw the pain was. And then she said, but she didn't want that raw pain to go away because she was afraid that that would take away the memory. So, you know, I'm not a counselor, but it's okay if that pain is not raw every minute of every day, because the person who died would want us to go on. God wants us to go on. God has more in store for us. He has work for us to do. So it's okay for the pain not to be as raw. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's kind of goes back to the feeling guilty. Like some people feel guilty about feeling good. They think that they shouldn't feel good, um, you know, down the road after someone has died. That's not right, but it's okay. It's okay. Once they confront their grief, it's okay. Um, Another thing would be if they can stay active, whether it's at church, at school, if they have some community thing they can do or some work they can do. Staying active is a great thing. Now, that's not to the point of avoiding dealing with it, but that is to the point of the being active gets you to take your mind off of your grief for a little while after you have dealt with it. Another thing some people might want to do is join a support group. Those are great. You can share your feelings and share how you were doing with other people, and uh, that's probably one of the greatest things, is that people are there that have the same grief that you do and can share their experiences for you or for your child. Um, Another thing would be to maybe create a journal or a diary just to write down how you feel, to get that out uh, in some other form. And then another thing that people like to do that helps some people is to create some type of memorial. If there is a death, create some type of memorial. If there's a move, bring something with you from an old house or something to remember that person. But remember, the whole point of this, and I'm not a grief counselor at all, and like I said, I am just sharing this information um, to you. But the biggest thing is that grief is going to happen to all of us. It will happen, and it will happen to us more than once in our lifetimes if we live to be older. Um, so our children need to understand that it is natural, it is normal, but we will get through it. And that's the big part. We will get through it by the grace of God. He will see us through no matter what tragedy comes our way. Have a great day. This is Sylvia McCrory with Christian Parenting Today. Thank you for joining us. And please click on the subscribe button. Have a good day. Bye.